Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. Dude, we're cut from a different cloth. We're Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. It is showtime now, and welcome in. Appreciate you so much for joining us here at Buckeye Huddle on Buckeye Huddle Primetime, where we are here every Monday and Thursday. Hope you're having a fantastic evening. Hope you're staying warm. This is getting a little bit ridiculous. It's freezing down here in Buckeye Studios. I had to leave the house really early in the morning, like before the sun came up, and that is just, I don't have to do that often. When I do have to do that, it is just, it's torture for me. I cannot stand it. But I had to do it today, and the car thermostat read 0, and that's just, it's unacceptable. It's just totally unacceptable, but it did make me feel like less of a Nancy, the way I ran those trash containers out to the curb, man. I mean, I was running those things like I was being chased. It was so cold. Anyway, hop on in here. Doug, Io, appreciate you, buddy. Get in the comments section. Let's talk some ball. Let's please like the show. If you've not subscribed yet to Buckeye Huddle, I would encourage you to do that. It is the best way to support your favorite creators, no matter who they be. But of course, you like Buckeye Huddle. Let's support us over here at this channel. Tonight's topic actually was inspired from a conversation that we had over on the Buckeye Huddle board, and that was a conversation regarding Brian Hartline and the hiring of Brian Hartline, and it kind of like spun me off into a whole different direction here, as we've just seen a lot of the offseason come through. And I wanted to go through this offseason and kind of comp it to the 2024 and 2025 off seasons. But if you want some engaging conversation with some of the most like tuned in, thoughtful Ohio State fans, get over to Buckeye Huddle, buckeyehuddle.com. Get on that board. Me, Tom, Tony, all the guys are over there, but it's really the conversation from really tuned in Buckeye fans that spark a lot of ideas and engaging conversation, particularly when not a lot's going on. But also, the articles over on buckeyehuddle.com are not behind a paywall, so you can always check us out. Appreciate you from Louisiana, Stephen Bishop, our buddy in the house there. We got a Louisiana Buckeye in the house. Anyway, go back to the offseason of 2024. Of course, we all remember it. It was a fantastic offseason. Michigan fans trolled us all offseason, telling us hang the banner, hang the banner. It was constant. That was their refrain. Hang the banner. Started off with so many of the seniors coming back for unfinished business. The seniors from the vaunted class of 2021, the best recruiting class in Ohio State history, and a largely disappointing group to that point. Most of them did not want to leave, having gone 0 for 9 on their goals in their first 3 seasons. So they ended up coming back and finishing just 1 for 12 on their goals. But the one that they won is one that Ohio State only wins on average every 10 years. So certainly it paid off, and big time, man, big time. But that offseason, I remember talking extensively about every single thing that happened. One, because it was exhilarating, and 2, because I had just started my show and there wasn't a ton to talk about. So all those moves were like, all right, I can talk about this. Let's get on and do some reps about this. But I just remember talking about every single thing extensively. And you had the transfer portal class, which literally started immediately after the national championship game, when Quinshon Judkins tweeted 2 minutes after the confetti started dropping that he was coming to Ohio State. And that kind of got the ball rolling in what really kind of stole their national championship shine, because all the media momentum was on what's going on at Ohio State. And I loved that. And I'll always appreciate Quinshon tweeting that out when he did. It was just perfect timing. But, you know, we look at that transfer portal class and the way that shook out in that class of 2024, the current market in the transfer portal, that transfer portal class is something we will never see again. I mean, forget the fact that it took Nick Saban retiring to make that class happen. You don't see guys like Caleb Downs entering the portal every year. But just from a financial standpoint, the portal market had not exploded in the like, for instance, Will Howard got $1 million. That was 2 years ago. Will Howard in this current market, probably like a $3 million quarterback. I mean, that's an insane jump. Caleb Downs got $1 million. He's probably closer to 3 with 2 years of eligibility left. I mean, that's how well respected he was. Quinshon Judkins, he's now over $1 million running back in this year's portal. And Julian saying that's the number 1 freshman quarterback. That dude's over $1 million as well. So that portal class could not have happened in this market. We'll never see one like that again. You kind of caught lightning in a bottle with that, but you also had some coaching changes, right? You had some coaching changes. Tony Alfrod leaves in the spring because he's got his feelings hurt, feels disrespected. So he tries to stick and twist the knife, and he does. He leaves, misses out on a national championship doing so. In comes Carlos Loughlin, and that certainly was an improvement for Ohio State. Then you get the big addition of Chip Kelly, and Ryan Day finally gives up play calling after he had tried the year before with Brian Hartline, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. So 2024 has its trials and tribulations after that offseason, but eventually they win a national championship. The question is, what percentage of the national championship can we credit to the offseason moves, to those coaching hires, to the portal class? I think in today's college football, now more than ever, I mean, it's very obvious that you can change the outlook of your season so much faster than you ever could before in the offseason. You can get a lot better. And for most programs, that can be something like from 5 wins to 8 wins, or from 8 wins to fighting for a playoff spot. At Ohio State, as the program currently stands and has for the last 25 years, that offseason can be the difference between a first-round playoff exit or a Final Four, or a Final Four versus a national championship. It's just so difficult to win it all now, as teams are so close together at the top, that these moves are so important. And the moves that we see made in the offseason that show up in January are the separator, man. It's those moves right there that scale the difference between the guys that win and the guys that don't. And that offseason in 2024 was the offseason that tipped the scales in Ohio State's favor as much as anything else did that year. But it doesn't happen if you miss on Chip Kelly, for instance, or someone like Chip Kelly, who, hypothetically comes in and does the job that Chip Kelly does. Doesn't happen without Will Howard. And we can debate on other things that might have derailed it had you not done it. And some will say it doesn't happen without losing that final game of the regular season. I'll never admit to that. I get the point, but it's just not something I'm ever going to be willing to say. My point is here that the offseason in today's college football has such outsized importance compared to what it used to. It's just so much more important. So you win the national championship in 24. Perfect offseason heading into 2024. Ohio State's offseason heading into 2025 was quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. And just as an offseason can take Ohio State from a potential Final Four-ish type looking team to a national championship, an offseason can also take an Ohio State team that looks like a national championship team to a first-round exit, which is what happened in 2025. Now, I think 2025 had several mistakes that ultimately contributed to Ohio State's early exit. And I was even going to do a show on like the 5 biggest mistakes, but it's like at this point now, enough time's passed that while I'd like to talk about it, it almost feels like, at this point, it's not even worth it. Why do it? Just serves to get us bitter, because things are going really good right now, in my opinion. But 2025, several mistakes. And in the offseason, it started with the portal class, right? So we look at the portal class of 2024 to the portal class of 2025, was not good enough. They chose the wrong back in CJ Donaldson. For the same money, the same ranked backs, you could have got Ahmad Hardy, who was sensational. You could have got Kyron Lacey, who was sensational. So they chose a guy that contributed, right? Not in the ways they wanted to. He did contribute, so it wasn't a total flame out, but that was the wrong back. So bad choice there. Defensive end they get in the winter portal, Logan George. He's at Washington now, couldn't play. Brought in a kicker, Jason Corville, who is now at Tulsa. He couldn't play. The class headliner, Ethan Onyanwa, was a total disaster. And Phil Daniels, that was a hit based on what you paid him and what you got out of him as a starter, and a guy who going to come back next year, hopefully as a starter at guard, which I said after the Wisconsin game that Ian Moore is too good to take off the field, and Phil Daniels should be moved to guard. Now it looks like we're going to get that. I think that move should have been made last year. But anyway, Max Clare was a hit, but not in the way we thought. And then in the spring portal, you get Bo Atkinson. Oh, my. That did not turn out like we wanted. But there were definitely some bright spots, a whole lot of average, and some total flameouts. And ultimately, as we look at that portal class, it's a loser. It's a loser because you've got to hit on the expensive guys. You got to. It can't be negotiated with. You got to hit on those expensive guys in the portal. Now, then you get to your hires heading into 2025. Matt Patricia, obviously a smashing success. I thought that Ryan Day somehow finding a way to improve the defense after losing what he lost, both players and coordinator, was one of the more impressive things we've seen in the history of my life at Ohio State. I don't know how you do that, but somehow he did that. That defense got better. So smashing success with Patricia for sure. Tyler Bowen, he hires him after he has not coached. He hasn't coached the offensive line in 10 years when he walks into Ohio State. And he gets two very expensive assistants to work with him. And it was a mistake. He wasn't ready for it. Ultimately, I'm not out on this guy, but it wasn't good enough, and it's got to get a lot better. And then what really led me into this train of thought here, as before we go and grade this 2026 offseason, the hiring of Brian Hartline, which was kind of what kicked this conversation off. Brian Hartline, that hiring right there, I think was the biggest mistake of the offseason. And in 2023, he was technically the offensive coordinator, didn't call the plays. And I'm going to admit right off the rip here, when I call this the biggest mistake of the offseason, that's with the benefit of hindsight. I supported the decision. I thought it would work. I'm an Ohio State fan. My natural inclination is to root for the good and want the good to happen. And Brian Hartline's the guy that I've, respected for a long, long time, like all of us. And I just looked at the guy and thought, hey, man, if he thinks he's ready and Day thinks he's ready, I want to believe my head coach. I want to believe him. And I've never seen Brian Hartline try anything and fail at it. So I think it'll be a smashing success. And I was pretty dug in on that because I wanted to believe it, right? I was definitely wrong. I was wrong. So with the benefit of hindsight, I could say I was wrong. And I can also say that was a huge mistake. And Tony gave a different point of view to me as we kind of talked back and forth. Now, his point of view was he deserved it. He deserved the promotion, which I definitely agreed at the time. And he added some other things to it. But here's what we knew. We already knew that Ryan Day believed he wanted to take a step out of the offense, right? He wanted to immerse himself in his new role as a CEO. And he was successful with it, won a national championship with it. What he didn't want to do immediately after was hop right back in. And we knew that Hartline, for whatever reason, didn't work out in 2023. And some people will say Hartline totally flamed out because he didn't know the run game and Day had to take it over. I think it had a little bit to do with Day not quite being ready to take it over, whether that be he not being ready himself or maybe a little bit of mistrust with how it would go with Hart, maybe a little bit of both. But in 2025, Day is in a situation where he has a loyal employee who definitely deserves a promotion. I agree with Tony. But the only spot for him to elevate within the organization is to the offensive coordinator. And the way we have seen football go in the last 10 years at high-level college football programs like Ohio State, coordinator positions are several rungs ahead of being a good position coach. It is a very specialized field now. It makes a ton of money. And while you may be a really good position coach, You may be great at what you do. If you have never coordinated an offense before and never called plays before, it's like you're skipping a few rungs on the ladder to do that from position coach to coordinator at a place like Ohio State, because it's so specialized at this point. Not to mention, it's a totally different skill set than the things that make you a good position coach. I think making a good position coach actually coordinates more closely with the skills you need to be a great head coach than it does to be a coordinator. And there are some guys who are position coaches who are just like, they got that mind for schematics and for sequencing plays. Not everybody has that. It's not a skill set that correlates with being a great position coach, which is about being a great leader, getting guys to follow you, getting dudes to do what you want them to do. Like, it's just a totally different deal. And while I sympathize with Ryan Day's situation in that spot, like, what do? You don't want this guy to walk. You don't want him to be disgruntled. You want people to want to work for you. And that's a great way to build loyalty. And we've done this in the past for years and years and years. This is the progression. Position coach, you spend some time working at offensive coordinator as a co-OC, and then you take it over. It just doesn't seem to me that that's the normal progression. It seems like you're skipping a few steps now and a few rungs on the ladder when it comes to Ohio State or any university like Ohio State. When you're literally going out, like, look at this. Chip Kelly, Arthur Smith. Look at these two dudes' resumes. And then look at Hartline. You know what I mean? Like, you're skipping rungs on the ladder now at this point. So while he did deserve a promotion, I feel as though you're maxed out in the organization at this point in his situation. You're just maxed out. Anything but a title, right? You can give somebody a title. But as far as taking on another responsibility, it's just too far over your head to what the job demands. And the other thing I would say is, if Ryan Day, say for instance, Brian Hartline was the cornerbacks coach, right? And he had 10 years of success like he had at wide receiver as the cornerbacks coach. Would Ryan Day have promoted him to the defensive coordinator in that position in 2025? No, he would not have. He would not have, because he would not have been able to bail him out if he wasn't quite ready or if things weren't going right. He did it on offense because he knew he could. And certainly he had to spend a lot of time doing that and teaching. And he's admitted that in his interview that he just had. The reason that he thought it was important to bring in Arthur Smith and not go with Keenan Bailey, though he thought about it long and hard, is he felt he needed to take a step back out of that room. Well, he had already taken that step out with Chip. So he's telling us he had to take a step back in with Hart. And that is not what he wanted to do. That's not what we wanted him to do. So all in all, that's a mistake. And in the end, if you don't give Hartline that position, maybe he leaves after the end of the 2025 season, which turns out is what happened anyway, only it happened at the worst possible time and threw a big wrench in everything, total distraction, etc. All right, so you got all that. You got the portal acquisitions, crappy portal, Tyler Bowen hire, didn't pan out great yet. We'll see what happens. The Hartline hire, and all of a sudden, you're a team that gets bounced out of the first round of the playoffs. From 2024's perfect offseason to 2025's not so great offseason, and we see the difference in the results. There's other things that contribute, but I think this plays a really big role, which makes me feel fantastic as we roll into 2026, because what have we seen this offseason? We could start off with the portal class. Ohio State, 17 portal guys come in, and they adopted a totally different strategy, which I don't think was easy at all for Ryan Day. I don't think it was easy at all. Similar to bringing Julian Sayin in 2024 on top of Aaron Nolan, after already telling Aaron Nolan, you'll be the only quarterback in the class. Wasn't easy. He struggled with it for days, but he knew it was the best thing for the team, so he did it anyway. But in the comments the other night, when asked about the portal class, right? He was asked about the portal class, And the first thing he said was a 5-minute diatribe on why they are a recruiting and developing program that will always be important, recruiting and developing at a high level, kids pouring into the program for years and years and years. 5 minutes he went on. Remember, the question was about the portal class, and he's talking immediately about recruiting. When somebody asks you how that cheesecake was, and your immediate answer is, it's very important to eat a healthy dinner and track your macros every day and why that all matters to you, it tells me you didn't feel great about eating the cheesecake, or you're defensive about eating the cheesecake, one or the other. Nonetheless, whether Ryan Day is defensive about it or doesn't feel great about it, he knew that was what the best thing was for the organization, was to handle the portal class like they did. And I think they did great. I think they did a phenomenal job. And this is one of the things I love about Ryan Day. Whether or not he feels good about it or not, he wants to win more than anything. He wants to win more than anything. And when he is convinced, or someone that he trusts convinces him that it's time for a change, you need to tweak the direction to win, he'll make that change immediately and he'll go all in. It's what he does. And I love it. Now, when it comes to the selection of these particular portal players, I think that a year from now, we're going to be sitting here having this conversation talking about another smashing success of a portal class. That's my thought on it. Because what they did was take out as many possible variables as there could be. Took out all the variables. They didn't just go with old guys, the majority of them in year 4, 5, 6, or 7. The vast majority of them. There's only a couple of them. One of them is Connor Hawkins with a couple more years of eligibility. The long snapper has a couple more years of eligibility. And Dominic Kelly, the one single guy they took that was kind of like an extension of recruiting. That's the cornerback out of Georgia who just finished his freshman year. All the rest of these guys are 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th year guys. So you take those variables out. You've seen a ton of film on them. Not just that, but they go after guys who have played at the very highest level. They don't want more Logan Georges. They go to the SEC and get 3 dudes from Alabama, Georgia, Florida, LSU. Out of the ACC, Duke, Florida State. Out of the Big Ten, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Big 12, UCF, Baylor. Only 2 guys didn't come from the Power 4, and that's McEwen out of UTSA, the wide receiver, and the tight end from OU, who is such a spitting image of Will Kazmarek down to coming right from OU that it just looks like a perfect fit. Then we get to the hires. When we look at these hires, Cortez Hankton just coached wide receivers for the last 10 years at Vanderbilt, Georgia, LSU. Not only that, he was also the co-OC. When we look at Tyler Bowen hadn't coached offensive line in a decade. So you also take the variables out with your coaching hire with Cortez Hankton. This guy who's been doing this right now. I think that was intentional. Arthur Smith just spent the last 7 years straight as either a head coach or offensive coordinator in the NFL. Brian Hartline never called plays and had a shaky start in 2023 as the OC. I mean, when we compare those hires, it's really not comparable. So, by the way, when we look at Arthur Smith, man, we'll get back into that. I want to talk about what Day said about some of the players the other night. But anyway, then Ryan Day goes in, and in an attempt to fix one of the biggest issues that has plagued his entire tenure at Ohio State, special teams, a lot of it his own fault because he didn't care, he recognizes now that he has to care. And it is fantastic because he now wants to do this, go get a special teams coach who's a guy that is a really good special teams coach. And he has the ability to do this without wasting one of his accountable coaches now as the rule change. Now, this is be the 3rd season since the rule change where you can have as many coaches as you want. Remember, in the past, he had to waste a accountable coach on Parker Fleming. So he goes out and he gets Robbie Disher, steals him from Brett Bielema. Now, Robbie Disher, important to note, wasn't just the special teams coach at Illinois. Robbie Disher was also coaching the tight ends, which means Robbie Disher drops down in title to leave Illinois and come to Ohio State. Arthur Smith dropped down from the NFL to come to Ohio State. Cortez Hankton was the wide receivers coach and co-offensive coordinator at LSU. He loses that co-OC, comes to Ohio State as just the wide receivers coach. All three of these dudes dropped down to come to Ohio State. Robbie Disher, the last 3 years at Illinois, in his first year, PFF ranked their special teams units 7th in the nation. S&P Plus, his best unit was 16th. His punter, one of the best in the nation in 24 and 25. We tried to get his kicker, David Alano, one of the best in the country. Long snapper, all Big Ten, back-to-back. I mean, it just goes on and on. His kicker in 2023 was all Big Ten. His return man, Isaiah Williams, was all Big Ten. This dude had 3 straight seasons with all Big Ten kickers and all Big Ten returnmen the entire time he was there. But it's the block punts that I can't get over, man. This guy's had 2 seasons where his units have blocked 6 or 7 punts. That's insane, man. It's just insane. 6 or 7 kicks and punts combined. It's just driven me nuts, not because I'm some special teams junkie. In fact, coaches who consistently, and this happened more when I was young, but they would just beat it home and just talk about it nonstop. I'd be like, okay, shut up. We get it. And then you get a coach who does not care about it. And boy, does it burn you up, because there's just no excuse when 99% of the time your team walks on the field and you're the team that does not get the edge and doesn't get those hidden yards in special teams because the coach doesn't care. Doesn't care. Don't care. Give me the ball. Fair catch. Give me the ball. Kick back. It doesn't matter. Just give my offense the ball. It's all he's ever cared about. But he understands that he cannot only care about that anymore because he's changed the way he plays offense. And the way he wants to play offense now is a way that requires good special teams. And Ohio State's special teams units are kind of rocking in the 82 to 85 range, you know, just a little below the median line in college football. And that shouldn't happen, not with the talent you have. And it's just driven a lot of people mad. They've tried a lot of different ways to fix it. You make silly decisions, just super safe decisions like Brandon Inniss returning 14 of 24 punts last year, holds on to the job even after fumbling at Washington. You know, you get a special teams coach that comes in and actually cares about returns. Brandon Inniss is not returning punts. He doesn't got the juice for it. Somebody's getting back there that's got some juice. And Day knows that he has to do this. He has to lean into this. And I love the guy that he brought in. Love Disher. Now, efficiency football, quality special teams, things are lining up. Arthur Smith, as the offensive coordinator, I think is perfect for what Ryan Day wants to do and the way he is envisioning the offense moving forward. I don't personally like the direction. In fact, I can't stand it. However, I think it can win a national championship if they're excellent at it, and that's all that really matters. I just don't like the style of football. I can't stand this slow football. I think you're not taking advantage of your athletic wins and your recruiting wins when you are rolling with a bunch of heavy personnel. By the way, the heavy personnel that you brought in, it isn't that great. It just doesn't stack up. So I don't like it, but they can win with it. I did a show the other day. You can check it out over on Juck on Bucks, playing Arthur Smith, talking about kind of the tenets of his offense. And he breaks down some of his film, talks about his overall philosophies. And the dude got me fired up, man. I really, really like him. Not only do I like him, I think that he's also going to bring in some excellent wide receiver blocking, which is something that totally has sucked forever. We had one good year, Chip's year, 2024, where the wide receiver blocking was on point. And here comes Arthur. Arthur's going to fix that too. So this offseason, you bring in 3 coaches in Robbie, Arthur Smith, Cortez Hankton, all of whom are totally qualified or overly qualified. Remember, each of them dropped down a title to come to Ohio State, to come to work for Ryan Day. In the portal class, I think will be a smashing success. So my grade for this offseason, it's an absolute A. It's an absolute A. And you know, they can make fun of us again for hang the banner, hang the offseason banner. The last time Ohio State won the offseason banner, they won the national championship. Now, the class, when you combine the recruiting class and the transfer portal class, currently, and actually this is probably the way it's going to end, number 2 in the country now. It was number 3. It's now up to number 2 in the country. So it's not just, you know, me hanging the banner. It's right there, verifiable by folks that, you know, break down such stuff. So absolutely an A. I really love the hires. I really love the guys they brought in. I love the philosophy. I love that they told a lot of guys that, you know, I hate the thought of it, but dudes that were eating up money that they knew they weren't going to start, and guys that wanted more money and they weren't positive they were going to be great starters, it's time to move on. Because you can get caught up in, you know, doing what you think is always best for the morale, etc. And let's keep in mind, these guys left. You got guys in 17 versus 11 portal guys in from last year to this year. And I got a lot of questions or comments like, this is going to kill the brotherhood. And I'm just like, listen, the guys that left because they wanted to be somewhere else more. Whatever the reasons are, they wanted to be somewhere else more. And the guys that came in wanted to come in and be part of that brotherhood for whatever reasons. And that's the bottom line. So the dudes that are here want to be here more. So I don't think it's going to hurt the brotherhood at all. Now, they did talk about, you know, you got to rebuild from scratch, which I don't know that, well, let's see. You've got 17 transfer portal guys. Currently 28 of the 29 freshmen have come in for spring. So, you know, it's less than half your dudes. You got plenty of guys that can walk these guys through what we do. So fantastic. Also, 24/7 completed their final grades, and Sam Greer, our offensive tackle out of Hoban here down the street, finishes at 247 as the number 35 overall player in the country. Just 3 spots out of 5-star. Hurts me to my heart, but congratulations to my dude, Big Sam. That's an awesome ranking. And I really wanted him to get that 5th star from somewhere. That was the last opportunity to get it. And he did not end up getting it at Rivals or ESPN or either of the composites. And now at 247. So a little bummed out, but 35, damn good, man. Damn good. And a great job on Tyler Bowen for that. And Max Riley, who finishes as the number 9 offensive guard, interior offensive lineman for in the country. And that was a good one too. Now, let's please all like the show. I'm going to hit on a couple of your questions, and then I want to talk a little bit about what Day had to say, but you guys had a couple of comments that I starred when I was going on there. What team will we face this year that'll give us the toughest battle? Ooh, man. I'm going to go with Texas. Their portal class is just ridiculous, man. They brought in some really great talent. Arch was playing really good to end the season, and we're going to be playing down there at night. And they've lost to us 2 times in a row. And you want to talk about a fired up group. Listen, it's very possible Ohio State could just have their number, and now it could be in their head. I think there's a chance, you know, you still win the game, but it's the only game that Ohio State is going to be the underdog. I think. I don't think they're going to be the underdog against Indiana. We'll see. Could be, but not if you win that game. But I'm going to go with that one. What do you guys think? Doug says, I hope Arthur Smith can help the offensive line. I think Arthur Smith will absolutely help the offensive line, man. And I think that him and Tyler Bowen are going to get along great. These are 2 real meatheads. I mean, real meatheads. They like the same thing. They're both tight end and offensive line coaches and offensive coordinators. They're literally held the same three positions, both former college offensive linemen. I mean, they're just two peas in a pod. So they're going to get along great. The only thing they don't share is philosophically, Bowen prefers more gap scheme and Arthur Smith real big into zone. So, they'll have to work that out there. Sage says turbo and legend for returners. Abso-flippin-lutely. Absolutely. No doubt about it, man. Put them young dudes back there. Trust them to do their job. And if you weren't going to bench Brandon Inniss for fumbling against Washington and getting you only 3 possessions in the first half, which don't get me started on why this is not a good idea to play so few possessions, because one little fumble like that and all of a sudden you got a 3-possession half. But if you're not going to pull him, then you got to let the kids grow up too. Dave, are you live on other platforms? Dave, we're on YouTube, Facebook, X. I can't figure out the Instagram without having to set it up every single time on its own. But yes. In watching on, I'm sorry. I'm not on YouTube tonight. I'm on YouTube when I'm on I'm not on, Facebook tonight. That's when I'm on Juck on Bucks, but, Instagram, sometimes I have tried in the past and it's a real pain. StreamYard makes it a lot easier for you to do it to multi-platforms, but it can still be a pain in the ass. Pain in the butt, sorry. Geiger says, poll question, assuming you are qualified, would you rather be an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator in college or the NFL? I think that I would rather be an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator in college, because in college, you've got talent advantages that you don't usually have in the NFL, where the talent is mostly even, which is, it's just, I guess it depends what kind of program you're at. But there's also so much more you can do in college, right? There's so much more you can do to be successful. You can pick one of 5 different ways to play offense in college and go win. In the NFL, it's very trendy, which we are seeing these trends trickle down to college football, which we are seeing trickle to Ohio State football, which I cannot stand, because you don't need to do that in college football. You don't need to follow trends. You can do whatever you want to do. You can do what suits your personnel the best. And, that's why I hate it. It's why, and it's why I hate especially hearing this is where the NFL's going, as if that means a fiddly doodle to college football. It means absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. I'd also like to see, if I was an offensive coordinator, man, there is no chance that I would ever recruit or play a quarterback and I did not have him run the ball at all. That would never happen. I think you are giving up such a huge element and making it so much easier on the defense when you have no run threat from the quarterback at all. I wouldn't even consider it, not for a second. But that's me. Anyhow, Ryan Day talks the other day on his radio show on Friday night. And I wanted to go through a few things he had to say as he ran through the position groups, starting on the defense with the defensive line. Said he feels he's got a really good group with Kenyatta, Bo Atkinson, Zion Grady. Now, Bo Atkinson, he mentioned him second. There's no chance that dude is the number 2. Zion Grady, Epi Satani-Lay, my hope is both take him over, but I know that Kari will when Kari comes in. Did not bring up Kari. On the interior, he said Will Smith Jr. and Edric Houston got to step up for us at DT, and they absolutely do. Much of the season, success on defense is going to depend on those two, man. Really, it is. And both of them guys who have underperformed, 2 5-star dudes who have not played up to what they should have been. They got a couple years for baby Huey, but James Smith on his last year here, been inconsistent, ton of penalties. We shall see, man. But I'm excited. He's got the juice. He's been playing for Kalen DeBoer and Kane Womack, a crappy defensive coordinator. We'll see. Same with Quay Russaw. Certainly not lived up to his potential, which Ryan Day said he brings us a ton of pass rush ability, versatility, being able to play defensive end and linebacker. But this is a dude with just 2 sacks in his career. So these are guys that absolutely got to get better. At linebacker, he was so impressed with Christian Alliegro when Ohio State played Wisconsin, and the dude came back with the broken arm. I was just talking to my brother the other day, and he was like, I didn't even realize that he was that dude. Yeah, he was that dude. So that's pretty cool. Cornerback Cam Calhoun, who played at Winton Woods with Jermaine, but he was really excited to bring up Georgia transfer Dominic Kelly, who can cover at a high level, very intelligent player with 3 years of eligibility left. And again, the only dude like that is kind of the extension of recruiting that you needed, because along with Jay Timmons and Jordan Thomas, who he said are off to a good start, you really wanted a third cornerback in this class or the class of 2025 to go with Jordan Woods and Devin Sanchez. And now you got him. You got Dominic Kelly. So boom, all's well that ends well. You get yourself your dude, and cornerback room looking a lot better with him. At safety, he said Terry Moore is dynamite. Great range. I think Terry Moore is my favorite player in this portal class, and I think he's going to be an All-American. Earl Little Jr., a lot of versatility, nickel, safety, specials. He said Connor Hawkins came highly recommended from those who live in the kicking world, which sounds fantastic. And he thinks he's got the best long snapper in the country in Dalton Riggs from UCF. Said Julian Sayin needs a huge offseason, and he's the best quarterback in the country. Tavian St. Clair is someone who's really got to step up for us. Quarterback Justin Martin, that's 5th-year dude out of Maryland, big kid. He said he's an interesting guy, really good athlete. He knows we got depth in that room. He understands his position, but at the same time, he's not going to take a back seat to anybody. And then he broke the news that Bo and Isaiah both going to miss spring. Isaiah, his 2nd spring in a row, undergoing shoulder surgeries. Neither of them are serious, but that puts you in the situation where, you bring in Jacoby Jackson from Florida. We're going to see a lot of him. We're also going to see a lot of Turbo. Turbo was a top 100 back coming out of high school. We didn't really hear the word boo from Turbo all last year. Now we get to see Turbo. We get to see Favor Aki as a true freshman. We didn't get to see him at all last year. He was injured for almost his entire senior year. And then we get to see how they use Legend, who he called a poor man's Tyreek Hill. I could not believe he said that, because Legend loves the Tyreek Hill thing, but the poor man's, I don't know that needed to be. I don't know if he could reword that. I think he would. They probably said that behind closed doors, and then that just kind of slipped out. Kyle Parker, wide receiver, Devin McEwen, a couple of dudes in their 3rd and 4th year. He said we wanted to get older at Z, and they certainly did. He talked about McEwen and some of the wild plays he made against Texas A&M, and Parker had some real wild plays too. I really like these guys. I think that McEwen's going to be a stud at Z. I think Parker is going to end up moving into the slot if they ever play the slot, and take some of BI's snaps. As far as BI, he said Brandon Innes needs to take the next step for us, and he knows that. And I don't know how much more of a step he can take. Plays his butt off, hard as he can. I think there are some physical limitations that he has that don't suit that playing that position at a super high level. Not the way we are used to seeing an Ohio State slot play that position. And that's, unfortunate. Love the guy, but it is what it is. As far as the 2nd-year guys, he said Phillip Bell has shown a lot of promise and thinks that's somebody who can help us. And man, I'm big on Phil Bell. Des Jones, also a slot receiver who, the way we're going, will never see the field. But he said he played Malachi Toney role on the scout team and looks the best he has since coming off his injury. David Adolph, big former walk-on wide receiver, is back again for another year. And Chris Henry Jr., Jaquaden Guilford, both really talented. Brock Boyd, going to come in here and compete his tail off. No mention of Jaden Ricketts. So brought up 3 wide receivers on his own. And we've talked about Art Smith and that Art is not a 3 wide receiver guy, which is why we're not going to see a ton of the slot receiver. But he said, when you play with 3 wide receivers in a game, it's harder and harder to do. Remember, we used to have 5 first-round picks, and now you got to decide where to invest your resources. So essentially playing like, saying we want to play 3 wide receivers, but we just don't have as many good wide receivers as we used to. So he said, we're going to mix it in as much as we can, but also mix in the tight ends. So yeah, not going to see as much of that. That's for sure. And just kind of reinforced that we are, doubling down on this tight end, the tight end bonanza. That's what the Ohio State offense is now. And we're going to see a lot of it. The good news about that, I don't think they're garbage tight ends. And he talked about the tight ends, and a guy I really like. I didn't pay much attention to these 2 transfer portal tight ends when they came in, because I didn't think we were going to see this tight end thing again. But the hiring of Art Smith, the way he's been talking, since I've studied more Art Smith, it's absolutely here to stay, and might even be, it'll be just as much as last year, in my opinion. Hunter Welsing is an absolute dude. That's the 7th-year guy out of Northwestern. I think this guy is going to be a real revelation. I actually think because he can block better than Max Clare, in totality, I think he might just be just as good for the team as Max Clare was. And that is really exciting for some dude from Northwestern you just happened to sign on the cheap. He tore up Michigan, had a really good game against Michigan. Mason Williams said he's got the right mentality and a toughness to him, and he certainly does. That's a kid from Mogador. They're tough in Mogador. But he's a lot like Kazmarek. Said Nate Roberts is as talented a young tight end as we've had in a while, and there's no doubt about that. Brody Lennon, Max LeBlanc need to prove they can play. And that was like, yeah, man, you need to prove you can play or get the hell out, which I loved. Then he said Christian Bennett Christian is a tremendous leader for us. So that's good. Glad he's a tremendous leader. The singular lowest graded player on the entire team last year. If he does not improve, I really hope he's not a guy who plays another 250 snaps like he did last year, because there was a liability a lot of the time out there. Offensive line obviously brought in no transfer portal players on the offensive line. That was a big discussion point, continues to be. They said that, you had to retain the guys you had, and it really wasn't even on the board, for them to go out and bring in any offensive lineman. Of course, you did bring in the kid from Dartmouth, but that's just, I think he is competing for your number 4 tackle spot with Carter Lowe. And that's not really what anybody wanted to see. But you retained all of your offensive linemen, and that's great. They really wanted to make a point of kind of reinforcing to the fan base that we don't quite factor in as much how difficult it is to retain the roster, how much these guys are worth. Everybody wants them. And, in the ultimate twist of irony, they are worth more. They're worth more. Ohio State is bidding against Ohio State's own success, because the guys are worth more because they've come to Ohio State and been developed by Ohio State. So it's pretty interesting that is the situation they find themselves in, but it is the situation that they find themselves in. So anyway, I thought it was a really insightful interview, as Ethan lets us know here that our new guy from Dartmouth, 700 snaps at Dartmouth, only 1 sack, which is fantastic. Chroma says, I'm no expert when it comes to OL, but I know the good ones pick up short yardage. That's a darn fact, buddy. Geiger worries a little bit about quarterback if Sang gets hurt, being so slight of frame. I think Tavian will take several games to get up to speed. I was talking about this the other day, Geiger. I'm with you. I actually think in a pinch, let's say if it's game like 4 or 5, it's Justin Martin who's coming in off the bench, and they're going to go heavy run game, utilize him in the run game, and keep it minimal like that. But I think it's probably him. Just my guess at this point. Tavian, I believe in him for sure, but it's still a ways off. He's like this if this was a year where he needed to step into it, like Julian needed to step in year 2, I'd be really uneasy. Though at least he does have the athleticism to go out and use his legs. But anyway, someone just brainwashed us into being obsessed with the O-line. Don't get me wrong. They need to get better, but the same defenses we struggle with, I saw the best O-line struggle with, and that's a fact, Todd. That is an absolute fact. I'll also say that the game plan didn't do anything to assist those guys. That's for sure. Doug hoping Terry Moore is a completely healthy Thorpe candidate. He's got the skills. I really hope, we'll be able to know when we see him out there early, see him move if he's got the same juice as he used to. Geiger says, Chuck, last year was your biggest concern for position group, the offensive line. What is your biggest group concern this year? I am actually working on an episode where I'm going to go over that confidence level in each unit. But last year, I was fairly confident in the offensive line. I was a little more concerned about the defensive line, primarily because I wasn't sure what to expect out of Bo Atkinson, and I wasn't convinced that Caden Curry was a guy who could handle 30 to 50 snaps a game. Boy, was I wrong about that. We'd seen Caden Curry, but we'd seen him in short spurts. He's a little undersized. While I loved him as a player, Mad Dog, I just didn't know if, he's a little undersized. I didn't know if he could handle that 50 to 60 snap load a game. Boy, he sure could. I had no reason to worry about that. So I actually thought that we might see kind of a split between him and Bo Atkinson, and I wasn't sure what to expect out of Atkinson. Thankfully, you didn't need to use Atkinson. He gets passed by Zion Grady by the end of the year because he was not that guy. Totally trusted K-Mac, but Edric, I was a little bit concerned about that. And, I was right. He lost his starting job right on that one. Did end up getting it back. I didn't see Taiwan Malone blossoming, though I knew he had it in him because he had showed it to us against Marshall. Showed it to us against Marshall at the beginning of 2024 that he had the dog in him. Now, this year, Jason Moore, some people are saying, maybe he'll be that Taiwan Malone guy. Jason Moore's never shown us the dog, ever. Never, ever, ever. So, I just can't buy into that until I see it at least once. And, in fact, just the opposite is all I've ever seen on a Jason Moore. But I was really confident in just about every group. So I think my lowest confidence level was in the defensive line. And it wasn't, it wasn't a low level. It was just like the offensive line, to me, we saw them together go through the playoffs and play against the best of the best. And then you got the guy coming in who's supposed to be your starting left tackle, $1 million tackle. You expect that guy to come in and forget about that spot, man. That's plugged. That's done. That's money. Well, we were all wrong on that dude. I'll tell you what, the Rice film looked really good, guys. The film at Rice looked really good from Ethan Anyama. Certainly did to the Buckeyes too, man. But the fact that this guy, could you believe they invited this dude to the Senior Bowl? He got the 9th most snaps of Ohio State linemen this year. So they knew that Ohio State, a team that likes to win football games, paid this turkey $1 million to come play on their team, gave him the 9th most snaps throughout the course of an entire year, and thought he's probably better than that. They just didn't want to play him. Let's invite him to the Senior Bowl, which is a very exclusive invitation. Unbelievable to me. And of course, he had a very, very poor showing. Tough stuff, man. Playing offensive line ain't easy, buddy. Not easy. Doug says, I love Caden Curry, but I was concerned about his size. I thought he would wear down. I did too. Thumbs up, everyone. Thumbs up. Let's go. Let's get those thumbs up. Let's make sure we subscribe for our buddies at Buckeye Huddle. You know, we care about you guys. We are your pals over here at Buckeye Huddle. I really do appreciate you guys joining me tonight on Buckeye Huddle Primetime. Of course, remember, we are going to be back here on Thursday. During the season, we go Monday to kind of recap the weekend's games. Tuesday, we go down to the press conference. Wednesday, we recap what Ryan Day said Tuesday and start to kind of roll into the next week's games. But during the offseason, Monday, Thursday just makes more sense because Monday, Wednesday, it's kind of like, all right, you know, what do we talk about Wednesday? We just talked Monday. And in an hour-long single guy format where there's not really a back and forth until I talk to you guys, it's just a lot of, you know, like that extra day of news helps me put together a better show. So Monday, Thursday for the off season, and of course, 8:00 as always. So we will be back here on Thursday, and I will look forward to seeing you guys then. I do appreciate you. Again, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to Buckeye Huddle, and I'll talk to you soon. Check out.